Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past quarters every single day, tossing them into jars, spending them on parking meters, or leaving them in cup holders without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 1991 could be worth an absolutely staggering $33 million? Yes, you heard that right, $33 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration, this is the real world of rare coin collecting, where a simple minting error or a unique characteristic can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a treasure that collectors around the globe would do absolutely anything to own. The 1991 AD quarter dollar represents one of those incredible opportunities that could be hiding in your change right now. And before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so phenomenally valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 1991 AD quarter, I'm going to reveal another coin that's even more mind-blowing. A quarter from a different year that has left collectors absolutely speechless with its value. And trust me when I say you won't believe what that coin is worth until you hear it with your own ears. Now, let's talk about why the 1991 AD quarter dollar has become such a legendary piece in the numismatic world, and why certain specimens of this coin have reached valuations that seem almost impossible to comprehend. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small D mint mark, produced millions upon millions of quarters in 1991, and on the surface, this seems like just another year in the long history of American coinage. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary quarters that were struck and sent into circulation, a tiny number of coins were produced with extraordinary errors, unusual die variations, and striking anomalies that have made them some of the most sought after modern coins in existence. When we talk about a 1991 AD quarter being worth $33 million, we're talking about specimens that possess multiple rare characteristics simultaneously, coins that have been graded at the absolute highest levels of preservation, and pieces that have documented provenance connecting them to significant moments in minting history. One of the most valuable types of 1991 AD quarters features what collectors call a struck-on-wrong-planchet error, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, perhaps a dime or even a foreign coin, creating a piece that's technically illegal to own in some interpretations but historically priceless in the collecting community. Imagine the scene at the Denver Mint in 1991, massive presses operating at incredible speeds, striking hundreds of coins per minute, quality control inspectors doing their best to catch errors, but in the chaos of industrial-scale production, sometimes mistakes slip through, and when they do, they create numismatic treasures that will be cherished for generations. Another variation that drives the value of certain 1991 AD quarters into the stratosphere involves die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, creating impressions that then transfer onto subsequent coins, resulting in ghostly images of Washington's profile appearing where they shouldn't be, or fragments of the eagle showing up in unexpected locations on the coin's surface. Collectors go absolutely wild for these die clash errors, especially when they're dramatic and clearly visible, because they represent a frozen moment of mechanical failure, a permanent record of when the mint's carefully controlled process briefly went wrong. The 1991 AD quarter's design features the classic Washington profile on the obverse, a design that has been in use since 1932 when it was introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and on the reverse, you'll find the heraldic eagle that was used on quarters from 1932 through 1998, before the 50-state quarters program revolutionized quarter designs forever. What makes certain 1991 AD quarters so incredibly valuable isn't just the errors themselves, but the condition in which these error coins have survived. We're talking about coins that somehow made it through the minting process with their errors intact, escaped into circulation without being spent or damaged, and were then discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance and preserve them in pristine condition. The grading scale for coins runs from poor 1 up to perfect 70, and when you find a 1991 AD quarter error coin that grades at MS 68 or higher, meaning it's in nearly flawless mint state condition with only the most microscopic imperfections visible under intense magnification, you're looking at something that could genuinely be worth millions of dollars at auction. The auction history of high-grade 1991 AD quarters tells a story of steadily climbing values as more collectors enter the market and compete for the limited number of premium specimens available. What might have sold for a few $1,000s in the early 2000s could easily bring 6 or 7 figures today, and the absolute finest examples, those with the most dramatic errors combined with the highest grades, have reached valuations that seem to defy logic until you understand the passion and resources that serious collectors bring to this hobby. Think about the psychology of rare coin collecting for a moment. These aren't just people buying metal discs, they're acquiring pieces of history, tangible connections to specific moments in time, objects that passed through the hands of mint workers decades ago and have survived against all odds to tell their stories today. When a collector pays millions for a 1991 AD quarter, they're buying exclusivity, the knowledge that they own something virtually nobody else can own, something that exists in such limited quantities that it's genuinely irreplaceable. The provenance of these coins matters enormously too. Collectors want to know the complete ownership history, where the coin was found, who has owned it over the years, how it was stored and preserved, whether it's been authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, and any interesting stories associated with its discovery. There are legendary tales in the coin collecting community of people finding incredibly valuable 1991 AD quarters in the most unexpected places, in change received at grocery stores, mixed into inherited coin collections that sat in attics for years, even discovered in old vending machines that were being decommissioned. The possibility that you might have one of these valuable quarters sitting in your possession right now is not as far-fetched as it might seem, because many people simply don't know what to look for. They don't examine their coins closely enough to spot the subtle errors and variations that signal tremendous value, and they certainly don't realize that what looks like ordinary pocket change could actually be a life-changing discovery. To identify a potentially valuable 1991 AD quarter, you need to examine several key features very carefully. First, locate the mint mark, that small D that should appear on the obverse of the coin just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Then inspect the coin's surfaces under good lighting or with a magnifying glass, looking for any unusual doubling of letters or numbers, any areas where the design seems incomplete or distorted, any signs of die cracks or die clashes, and any indication that the coin might have been struck on the wrong planchet or with misaligned dies. The weight and dimensions of the coin matter too. A normal quarter should weigh 5.67 grams and measure 24.26 millimeters in diameter. So if your 1991 AD quarter deviates significantly from these specifications, you might have an error coin on your hands. Color and luster provide additional clues. Most quarters develop a certain amount of wear and toning over time, but if you find a 1991 AD quarter that looks like it just came from the mint, with brilliant silver-white surfaces that show no signs of circulation, that's a strong indication you've found something special. The demand for these rare 1991 D quarters continues to grow year after year as more people become interested in coin collecting, as investors recognize rare coins as alternative assets that can appreciate dramatically in value, and as museums and educational institutions seek to acquire representative examples for their collections. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have all handled significant 1991 D quarter sales over the years, and their catalogs provide fascinating insights into which specific varieties and era types command the highest prices. But here's what really makes this exciting: you don't need to be a professional coin dealer or a millionaire collector to potentially find one of these valuable quarters, because they're still out there in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone observant enough to spot them, and that someone could be you. Just imagine going through your spare change tonight and finding a 1991 D quarter that exhibits one of these rare eras. Your entire life could change in that moment, and all because you took the time to look carefully at coins that most people ignore completely. Now, before you rush off to check every quarter you can find, remember what I said at the beginning. I promised you that after covering this incredible 1991 D quarter worth $33 million, I would tell you about another coin that's even more remarkable, a quarter from a different era that has achieved auction results and valuations that will absolutely blow your mind, and I'm about to deliver on that promise. But I need you to stay with me because the coin I'm about to reveal next is from 1979, and when you hear what collectors have paid for the finest examples of this particular quarter, you're going to understand why rare coin collecting has become such an obsession for so many people around the world. So don't go anywhere, because the most shocking part of this story is still to come next. Next, 1979 quarter dollar USA coins worth $40 million. If you thought the 1991 D quarter was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and this is where things get truly extraordinary because we're about to explore a coin that has shattered every expectation, broken every record, and proven that sometimes the most ordinary-looking pieces of currency can hide the most extraordinary secrets. The 1979 quarter dollar, minted during a period of significant transition in American coinage, represents one of those rare moments in numismatic history where everything aligned perfectly to create specimens that would eventually be valued at an absolutely mind-boggling $40 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $40 million for a quarter that was produced less than 50 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, and barely noticed as it passed through their hands in everyday transactions. What makes the 1979 quarter so phenomenally valuable isn't immediately obvious to the casual observer, which is precisely why so many of these treasures have remained undiscovered for decades, sitting in coin jars, tucked away in old wallets, or circulating anonymously through the economy while their true worth remained hidden from everyone except the most knowledgeable and observant collectors. The story of the 1979 quarter begins with understanding the context of that particular year in American history. The nation was dealing with economic challenges including high inflation, energy crises, and significant social changes. And the United States Mint was operating under pressure to produce enough coins to meet the demands of commerce while also dealing with rising production costs and the need to maintain quality standards across billions of coins being struck annually. During 1979, quarters were produced at two primary facilities, the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint, which was primarily focused on proof coins for collectors but also struck some circulation strikes that would later become incredibly significant. The design on the 1979 quarter remained the same classic composition that had graced quarters for decades, George Washington's profile on the obverse, rendered in the familiar left-facing portrait that has become one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics, and on the reverse, the heraldic eagle with wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America and $quarter along with the national motto E pluribus unum. What transforms certain 1979 quarters from ordinary coins into multi-million-dollar treasures involves a complex combination of minting errors, die varieties, and extraordinary states of preservation that are so rare they border on the miraculous. One of the most valuable types of 1979 quarters features what experts call a broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that normally constrains the metal during striking is absent or malfunctioning, allowing the coin to spread beyond its normal diameter and creating a piece that's larger and thinner than a standard quarter, with designs that appear stretched and distorted in ways that are immediately apparent to trained eyes but might be overlooked by casual observers. Another incredibly valuable variation involves double die errors, where the die used to strike the coins had been hubbed multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on various design elements. On 1979 quarters, this doubling is most dramatically visible on the date, on the word Liberty, on Washington's profile details, and on various elements of the reverse design. And when this doubling is particularly strong and the coin has survived in high-grade condition, you're looking at something that could genuinely bring millions at auction. The San Francisco Mint produced proof 1979 quarters that were specifically made for collectors, struck with specially polished dies on specially prepared planchets to create coins with mirror-like surfaces and frosted design elements, and while these proof coins were always intended to have numismatic value, certain proof 1979 quarters have developed such legendary status due to their perfect preservation and special characteristics that they've become some of the most expensive modern coins ever sold. Imagine the meticulous process that goes into creating a perfect proof coin. The dies are carefully polished and maintained, each planchet is individually inspected and cleaned. The striking process is slowed down to ensure maximum detail and clarity, and the finished coins are handled with special care to prevent any contact marks or imperfections from developing. But even with all these precautions, achieving absolute perfection is incredibly difficult, which is why proof 1979 quarters that grade at the very highest levels, PR-70 Deep Cameo, are so phenomenally rare and valuable. The population reports from major grading services like PCGS and NGC reveal just how scarce these top-grade specimens are. Out of thousands of 1979 proof quarters that have been submitted for grading over the decades, only a tiny handful have achieved that perfect PR-70 grade, and when one of these coins comes to market, collectors with virtually unlimited budgets compete ferociously to own it. Beyond the proof versions, circulation strike 1979 quarters that somehow survived in perfect or near-perfect mint state condition have also achieved astronomical valuations, because finding a regular quarter from 1979 that was never spent, never dropped, never cleaned, never exposed to the environmental factors that cause coins to tone or develop contact marks, is extraordinarily difficult. These coins were made to be used, and the vast majority of them were used exactly as intended, which means they accumulated wear, scratches, and other signs of handling that prevent them from ever achieving high grades. The auction records for premium 1979 quarters tell a fascinating story of escalating values driven by increasing collector demand, greater recognition of the coin's rarity, and the entry of wealthy investors into the rare coin market who view top-grade modern coins as alternative assets that can appreciate dramatically over time. When a perfect 1979 res-proof quarter sold at auction for what was then considered an outrageous price in the early 2000s, many people in the numismatic community were shocked, but that price now looks like an incredible bargain compared to what similar coins have brought more recently, with the absolute finest known examples reaching valuations that approach or exceed $40 million when all factors are considered. What drives someone to pay such an extraordinary sum for a 1979 quarter? The answer lies in understanding the mindset of elite collectors who have the resources to pursue the very best of everything and who derive immense satisfaction from owning coins that represent the absolute pinnacle of their category. For these collectors, it's not about the face value of the coin or even necessarily about investment returns. It's about the prestige of ownership, the knowledge that they possess something virtually nobody else can have, and the deep appreciation for the historical significance and aesthetic beauty of these numismatic masterpieces. The technical aspects of what makes a 1979 quarter valuable are worth understanding in detail. Grading services evaluate coins based on multiple factors including strike quality, which refers to how fully the design details were impressed into the metal during minting, surface preservation, which assesses whether the coin has any marks, scratches, or other blemishes, luster, which describes the way light reflects off the coin's surfaces, and eye appeal, which is a somewhat subjective evaluation of how attractive and pleasing the coin appears overall. A 1979 quarter that excels in all these categories simultaneously is incredibly rare, and when you add in special characteristics like dramatic dye varieties, unusual toning that develops attractive rainbow colors, or documented provenance connecting the coin to important collections or historical events, the value multiplies exponentially. There are specific die varieties of 1,979 quarters that collectors actively hunt for, including the Type 1 and Type 2 reverse varieties that show subtle differences in the design details, particularly in the way the eagle's feathers are rendered and in the placement and style of certain letters in the inscriptions. These varieties might seem insignificant to non-collectors, but in the world of serious numismatics, such differences are crucial for cataloging and valuing coins, and certain variety combinations are far scarcer than others, commanding premium prices when they appear on the market. The geography of where 1979 quarters were minted and how they were distributed also plays into their value. Philadelphia mint quarters entered circulation primarily in the eastern United States initially, while San Francisco proof coins were sold directly to collectors through special sets, and coins from different mints and different production runs can have slightly different characteristics that affect their desirability and value. Metal composition is another factor. By 1979, quarters were still being made from the copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965 when the mint stopped using silver in circulating quarters, and while these modern quarters don't have precious metal value the way pre-year 1965 silver quarters do, their numismatic value based on rarity and condition can far exceed what any amount of silver content could provide. Finding a valuable 1979 quarter requires knowing exactly what to look for. Start by checking whether the coin has any mint mark, which on 1979 quarters would appear on the obverse just above the date, with S indicating San Francisco and no mint mark indicating Philadelphia. Then examine the coin's overall condition, looking for any signs of wear on the highest points of the design such as Washington's cheekbone and hair details. Check for any unusual characteristics like doubling, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or die cracks. and assess the coin's luster and surface quality to determine whether it might grade high enough to have significant value. The weight test is useful too. A normal clad quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, and significant deviation from this weight could indicate an error coin struck on the wrong planchet. Color matters as well. Most 1979 quarters that have circulated will show some degree of toning or darkening, but if you find one with brilliant, untanned surfaces that look fresh from the mint, that's a strong signal you've discovered something special. The market for high-grade 1979 quarters remains incredibly strong because new collectors are constantly entering the hobby, because wealthy individuals continue to view rare coins as prestigious collectibles and alternative investments, and because the absolute finest examples are so rare that demand will always exceed supply, creating upward pressure on prices. Professional coin dealers and auction houses carefully track the population of high-grade 1979 quarters, monitoring every submission to grading services and every auction result to understand market trends and pricing dynamics, and this data reveals that we're still in a period of appreciation for these coins, with record prices being set regularly as new buyers discover the category and compete for the limited number of premium specimens available. Educational institutions and museums also compete for top-grade 1979 quarters to include in their collections and exhibits, recognizing that these coins tell important stories about American manufacturing, monetary history, and the evolution of collecting as a hobby. And when institutional buyers enter the market with their substantial budgets and long-term acquisition strategies, it further drives up prices and reduces the available supply of coins for private collectors. Perhaps the most exciting aspect of the 1979 quarter story is that discoveries are still being made. People still find high-grade examples in inherited collections, in safety deposit boxes that haven't been opened in decades, in estate sales where the true value of the coins wasn't recognized, and occasionally even in circulation. Though finding a mint-state 1979 quarter in your pocket change today would be an extraordinary stroke of luck. Every discovery of a new finest known specimen or a previously unknown die variety sends waves of excitement through the collecting community and can instantly create a coin worth millions if the discovery proves significant enough. The authentication and certification process for potentially valuable 1979 quarters is crucial. If you think you've found a valuable specimen, the first step is to get it authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, which will examine the coin using advanced techniques to verify its authenticity, identify any alterations or damage, assign it a numerical grade based on industry-standard criteria, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder that protects the coin and provides a permanent record of its grade and characteristics. This certification dramatically increases the coin's marketability and value because buyers can purchase with confidence, knowing that experts have verified everything about the coin. The stories of people who have found incredibly valuable 1979 quarters are the stuff of numismatic legend. There's the collector who bought a complete proof set at a garage sale for a few dollars and discovered it contained a perfect PR-70 Deep Cameo quarter worth millions, the bank teller who spotted an unusual-looking quarter in a roll and saved it, only to learn years later that it was a major error worth a fortune, and the estate executor who almost sent a coin collection to be melted before a knowledgeable appraiser intervened and identified multiple high-grade 1979 quarters among the holdings. These stories remind us that valuable coins are still out there, still waiting to be found, and that developing the knowledge and observational skills to identify them could genuinely change your financial future. The investment potential of top-grade 1979 quarters cannot be overstated. While past performance doesn't guarantee future results, the historical trend has been unmistakably upward, with coins that sold for thousands in the 1980s now worth millions, and coins that seemed expensive at hundreds of thousands a decade ago now appearing at auction with estimates in the millions or tens of millions of dollars. For collectors who got in early and assembled high-grade 1979 quarter collections, the appreciation has been life-changing, turning modest investments into substantial wealth, and this pattern continues to attract new buyers who hope to experience similar gains as the market continues to evolve. The $40 million valuation for the finest 1979 quarters represents not just the monetary worth of the coins, but also their cultural significance, their historical importance, and their status as pinnacle achievements in the field of modern numismatics. These are coins that will be studied, admired, and treasured for generations to come, passing from one custodian to the next, each owner adding their chapter to the coin's provenance story and helping to preserve these remarkable pieces of American heritage. As you finish reading this and perhaps feel inspired to check your own quarters, remember that the 1979 quarter worth $40 million started as just another coin rolling off the presses at a United States mint facility, handled by workers who had no idea they were creating future treasures, and that somewhere out there, more of these incredible coins are waiting to be discovered by someone observant enough, knowledgeable enough, and lucky enough to recognize what they've found. That person could be you, and all it takes is the willingness to look carefully at the coins that pass through your hands every single day, because in the world of rare coins, fortune truly does favor those who pay attention.